And it's so interesting that you say that because like that is so true. If you can imagine a crowd screaming those lyrics,
Yeah.
then it's probably something. But at the same time, you have another lyric that says like all this talk about going viral is making you sick. And,
Yeah.
and so how do you juxtapose and think about those two dichotomies?
Dude, it's such a living paradox, isn't it? Like we
Yeah.
want to we want to be famous, but we don't want to be famous, if that makes sense.
100%. I know exactly what you're talking about, but explain it for people who
Yeah.
haven't thought about it like that.
So, I had two instances a couple of years ago where I went viral on the internet or somewhat viral on the internet. And they were just based off of like covers. And it was, if honestly, the real secret to going viral is that you can't aim for virality. You have to just contribute something, and that contribution will eventually be like, oh yes, I too agree with this thing. It's sort of like you're trying to take the thing that you're good at and making it the most common and basic that it could possibly be, to be the most easily communicable thing, because you only have a limited span of time to be able to communicate those ideas, especially on short form apps like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all those places. So I did that a couple of times. I would do to test the water. I would use the acapella app. There's an application where you can record multiple talking heads of yourself singing things to a click track. And I did that several times, and two of those instances went viral. The first time I was adding on to a guy playing like doing like an acoustic version of Fly Me to the Moon, but instead of just singing Fly Me to the Moon, he was rapping it. And what I did was I just added harmonies over it. And then by way of him sharing it, it tangentially went viral. And I ended up DMing with James Corden because he had seen the video, he had seen people add on to it, and he retweeted it and then went straight to my DMs and was like, hey, I loved your voice. And I was like, wow, thanks, famous person James Corden. He was really nice about it, and I'm really grateful that he had like just some sort of level of like, yeah, no, I really love. This is like, I could sense the passion for harmonies and theater and like kind of the things that he telegraphs on the Late Late Show. Um, and that went viral. And then I did a cover on Instagram of a song off the Jonas Brothers' most recent album, and Joe Jonas saw it because I tagged him in it, and he shared it.
Wow.
And so instantly I just had like this barrage of people being like, oh my goodness, this is so good. And so all of these interesting and cool opportunities that you would think be like, oh my goodness, you did the thing. You did the thing. What? Yeah. And then, but you're sitting there and you're kind of like, I remember sitting there and going through the whole thing, and I just felt so empty.
Hmm.
And like, there was nothing fun about it. Like, I, nothing. And it goes back to the whole thing of like, you spoke about a podcast where it was that I talked about the art of nourishment. That's what I mean by nourishment. You can make as many Big Macs as you want in terms of putting out media or something that feeds the content beast, so to speak, but it's not going to make you whole, and it's not going to make the people that are on the receiving end of the stuff that you're putting out whole. You really want to make sure that you're setting up like the idea of this like nourishing steak dinner essentially through your music.
Hmm.
Um, and doing that online is really challenging because you have to strike a balance of, you have to be relevant, on time, and consistent with everything. And that is a challenge, especially when you're doing creative work. Um, so what I have been trying to figure out, and sort of the process of writing Nobody Knows My Name, the song that you were talking about, um, lends to this thought process of like, this is how I need to think about those things. Um, I sat there going like, no, isn't it awesome that nobody, like, I went viral twice. Nobody knows who I am still. It's beautiful. I can go out and I can live my life. Because if they did, I think I would lose my mind. Like I wouldn't be able to leave my house without being hounded by people, like the way that celebrities are, it just, that affects you on such a psychological level. And geez, like like I can only fathom, like, that's the amount of like attention famous people receive on the daily. Like all of those accolades of just swarming in, of like, or and not even just accolades, but like praise, criticism, hate, all those kinds of things. You're kind of just like, you sit back and you're like, no, nobody should want that kind of thing. As much as we try and chase it out of some sort of like psychological need to be heard and seen and felt, nobody should want that. Nobody.